The temperature had reached a sweltering 98 degrees on the afternoon of June 15, 1995, in the affluent Preston Hollow neighborhood of North Dallas, where manicured lawns and million-dollar homes created an atmosphere of suburban perfection that masked the darker realities lurking beneath the surface. The Martínez family's two-story colonial home at 4827 Meadowbrook Lane stood as a testament to the American dream achieved. Pristine white facade, perfectly maintained rose gardens, and the sound of children's laughter echoing from the backyard where 8-year-old Isabella Martínez was celebrating her birthday with family and close friends. The house buzzed with activity as relatives arrived throughout the afternoon, carrying brightly wrapped presents and sharing in the joy of a family celebration that would be remembered for decades, though not for the reasons anyone could have imagined that sunny Thursday. Carlos Martínez, a successful construction contractor who had built his business from nothing over 15 years, moved through his home with the confidence of a man who had achieved everything he had dreamed of when he arrived in Dallas as a young immigrant with little more than determination and strong hands. His wife Elena sat in the living room, their youngest daughter Isabella on her lap, while their 12-year-old son Miguel played with cousins near the birthday decorations that included dozens of colorful balloons, streamers, and a homemade banner that read, "Happy 8th Birthday, Isabella." The family photographer, Elena's brother Roberto, captured the moment with his new Kodak camera, creating what would become the most scrutinized photograph in Dallas Police Department history, though the significance of what he had inadvertently documented would not be discovered for 3 decades. The celebration continued into the early evening, with the extended Martínez family enjoying Elena's homemade tres leches cake and watching Isabella open her presents with the unbridled enthusiasm that only an 8-year-old can demonstrate, surrounded by people who love her unconditionally. The living room where the family gathered was decorated with pink and purple balloons that Elena had spent the morning arranging, creating a festive atmosphere that reflected the joy and warmth that characterized Martínez household on special occasions. Roberto's photographs captured not only the central family moments, but also the background details of their comfortable middle-class life, including the furniture that Carlos had saved for months to purchase, the family portraits that lined the mantelpiece, and the various personal belongings that told the story of a family that had worked hard to create a stable and loving home for their children. The last photograph taken that evening showed the core family together, Elena holding Isabella on her lap, both smiling broadly at the camera, while Carlos stood behind them with his hand on Miguel's shoulder, all 4 family members radiating the happiness and security that comes from being surrounded by love and celebration. The image would later be enlarged, analyzed, and studied by investigators who would spend countless hours examining every detail visible in the frame, searching for clues that might explain what happened to this seemingly perfect family just hours after the photograph. None of the celebration participants could have imagined that this moment of pure family joy would be their last together, or that the secrets hidden in the background of Roberto's innocent birthday photograph would eventually lead to the solution of one of Dallas. The Martínez family's disappearance discovered the following morning when Elena failed to arrive for her shift as a nurse at Presbyterian Hospital, where her punctuality and dedication had made her absence immediately noticeable to supervisors who knew she would never miss work without calling. Dr. Sarah Williams, Elena's supervisor and close friend, became concerned when repeated calls to the Martínez home went unanswered, and she decided to drive to Meadowbrook Lane during her lunch break to check on the family's welfare. Her arrival at the house revealed an eerie silence that seemed inconsistent with a home that should have contained a family of 4 beginning their normal Friday morning routines, and her attempts to peer through windows revealed no signs of movement or activity inside the residence. The front door was locked, but Dr. Williams noticed that the family's car was missing from the driveway, and newspapers from Thursday evening and Friday morning lay undelivered on the front steps, creating a pattern of absence that seemed unusual for a family known for their regular habits and community involvement. Her growing concern led her to contact Dallas police, who agreed to conduct a welfare check based on Elena's unusual absence and the lack of response to attempts. When officers Jennifer Brooks and Michael Torres arrived at the Martínez residence, They found a house that appeared to have been abandoned suddenly, with dishes still in the sink from the previous evening's birthday celebration, children's toys scattered throughout the living room, and no indication that the family had planned to leave for any extended period of time. The initial police investigation revealed disturbing evidence that suggested the Martínez family's disappearance had not been voluntary, as detectives discovered signs of a struggle in the master bedroom and traces of blood on the carpet that indicated violence had occurred sometime after the birthday had ended. Detective Raymond Ray Valdez, a 20-year veteran of the Dallas Police Department's Missing Persons Unit, took charge of the investigation and immediately recognized that the physical evidence suggested a scenario far more sinister than a family vacation or spontaneous trip that had been inadequately communicated to friends and employers. The house showed signs of hasty departure, with drawers partially opened, clothing scattered on bedroom floors, and personal items abandoned in ways that suggested the family had been forced to leave quickly and without the opportunity to pack properly or secure their home. Valdez's examination of the premises revealed that valuable items, including jewelry, electronics, and cash, remained untouched, eliminating robbery as a motive, and suggesting that the family had been targeted for reasons related to personal relationships or business dealing rather than random criminal activity. The detectives' initial canvass of the neighborhood revealed that several residents had heard what they described as unusual noise coming from the Martínez home sometime between 11 p.m. and midnight on June 15th. None had been concerned enough at the time to investigate or call police. The discovery of tire tracks in the backyard that did not match the family's vehicle provided additional evidence that unknown individuals had been present at the residence, likely using the secluded rear entrance to avoid detection by neighbors who might have noticed suspicious activity at the front of the. Detective Valdez expanded his investigation to examine Carlos Martínez's construction business, recognizing that successful contractors often dealt with large amounts of cash and might attract attention from criminal organizations seeking opportunities for extortion or robbery. His interviews with Martínez construction employees revealed that Carlos had been involved in several high-profile building projects throughout Dallas, including work for wealthy clients and city contracts that had generated substantial revenue over the past several years. The detective discovered that Carlos had recently completed a major renovation project for Vincent Castellanos, a prominent Dallas businessman whose legitimate enterprises reportedly generated millions in annual revenue, though rumors persisted about his connection to organized crime across Texas and the Southwest. Valdez's research into Castellanos' background revealed a complex web of business relationships that extended from legitimate construction and real estate development to suspected involvement in money laundering, drug trafficking, and other illegal activities that had made him a person of interest in multiple federal investigations. The detective learned that Carlos had been working on renovations to several properties owned by Castellanos, including residential homes and commercial buildings that were suspected of serving as fronts for illegal activities. Though no direct evidence had ever been developed to support criminal charges, Valdez began to suspect that the Martínez family's disappearance might be connected to Carlos's business relationship with Castellanos, particularly if the contractor had inadvertently discovered evidence of illegal activities during his renovation work on properties that were supposed to remain secret from law enforcement attention. The investigation's first major breakthrough came when Detective Valdez discovered that Carlos Martínez had been scheduled to meet with FBI agents on June 16th, 1995, the day after his family's disappearance, to discuss his observations during renovation at Castellanos' place that might be relevant to an ongoing federal investigation. The scheduled meeting had been arranged through Carlos's attorney, who revealed that his client had contacted him 2 weeks earlier with concerns about activities he had witnessed while working on Castellanos' project, including the movement of large amounts of suspicious modification to building structure, and conversations he had overheard that suggested illegal operations were being conducted at the renovated properties. The attorney, David Richardson, explained that Carlos had been reluctant to become involved in law enforcement investigations, but his conscience had eventually compelled him to report what he believed to be evidence of criminal activity, despite his concerns about potential retaliation against his family and business. Richardson's revelation that Carlos had been preparing to cooperate with federal authorities provided Detective Valdez with a clear motive for the family's disappearance, as organized crime groups were known to eliminate potential witnesses and informants who posed threats to their operation. The timing of the disappearance, occurring just hours before Carlos's scheduled FBI meeting, suggested that someone with advanced knowledge of the cooperation plan had acted to prevent his testimony from reaching federal investigators. Valdez immediately contacted the FBI agents who had been scheduled to meet with Carlos, beginning a collaborative investigation that would span 3 decades and ultimately reveal one of the most sophisticated criminal conspiracies in Dallas history, though the solution would come from an unexpected source anticipated during those of searching. Detective Valdez partnered with FBI Special Agent Rebecca Morrison to launch a comprehensive investigation that would examine every aspect of the Martínez family's lives, while focusing particular attention on Carlos's business relationship with Vincent Castellanos and the suspected criminal activities that had prompted his decision to cooperate with federal authorities. The joint task force established between Dallas police and the FBI represented an unusual level of cooperation between agencies that typically maintained separate jurisdictions, but the potential connection to organized crime activities warranted the enhanced resources and expertise that federal involvement could provide. Agent Morrison brought 15 years of experience investigating organized crime to the case, including previous attempts to build prosecutable cases against Castellanos and his associates that had been frustrated by witness intimidation, evidence tampering, and sophisticated counter-surveillance measures employed by the criminal organization. The task force's initial strategy involved conducting simultaneous investigations into the Martínez family's disappearance and the broader criminal conspiracy that had apparently prompted their elimination, recognizing that solving one aspect of the case would likely provide crucial information about the other. Detective Valdez coordinated the local missing persons investigation, while Agent Morrison focused on developing intelligence about Castellanos' criminal organization and identifying potential sources of information within the group that might be willing to cooperate with law enforcement. The partnership between local and federal investigators created opportunities for sharing information and resources that neither agency could have accessed independently, though it also created jurisdictional complications that would complicate the investigation as it progressed over the following years. The task force's examination of the Martínez home revealed forensic evidence that supported their theory about violent abduction, including blood spatter patterns that suggested at least one family member had been injured during the incident. Fingerprints from unknown individuals had been present in the house, and trace evidence indicating that the family had been restrained with plastic zip ties before being removed from the premises. Forensic analysis conducted by the FBI's Dallas Field Office Laboratory revealed that the blood found in the master bedroom belonged to Carlos Martínez, suggesting that he had been the primary target of violence during the abduction, though the relatively small amount of blood indicated that his injuries had not been life-threatening at the time he was removed from the house. The fingerprint analysis revealed prints from at least 3 unknown individuals who had been present in various rooms throughout the house, indicating that multiple perpetrators had participated in the abduction and that the operation had been planned and executed with professional efficiency. Advanced forensic techniques available in 1995 allowed investigators to develop DNA profiles from skin cells and hair follicles found throughout the house, though the nascent state of DNA database technology meant that these profiles could not immediately be compared to known criminals, have to be preserved for future analysis. Technology and database improved. The trace evidence analysis revealed fibers from rope and duct tape that had been used to restrain the family member, as well as chemical residues consistent with chloroform or similar substances that might have been used to sedate the victims during transportation from the house to unknown. Agent Morrison's investigation into Vincent Castellanos' criminal organization revealed a sophisticated network of legitimate businesses that served as fronts for money laundering, drug trafficking, and other illegal activity that generated millions of dollars in annual revenue while maintaining the appearance of lawful operation. The organization's structure included construction companies, restaurants, import-export businesses, and real estate development firms provided cover for criminal activities while generating legitimate income that helped insulate Castellanos from law enforcement scrutiny. Morrison's surveillance operations revealed that Castellanos maintained offices in downtown Dallas and operated from a heavily secured compound in the exclusive Highland Park neighborhood, where he conducted business meetings that were protected by sophisticated electronic countermeasures and armed security personnel. The FBI agent's analysis of financial records revealed complex patterns of cash transaction and international wire transfer that suggested extensive money laundering operations, though the organization's use of legitimate business structures made it difficult to distinguish between lawful commercial activity and criminal proceeds. Morrison discovered that Castellanos had been investigated by multiple federal agencies over the past decade, including the FBI, DEA, and IRS, but previous investigations had been frustrated by the organization's operational security measures and the systematic intimidation or elimination of witnesses who might have. The agent realized that Carlos Martínez's willingness to cooperate with federal authorities had represented a rare opportunity to develop an insider's perspective on the organization's activities, making his elimination a high priority for Castellanos and his associate, who understood that his testimony could have provided the foundation for a comprehensive federal prosecution. The investigation revealed evidence of official corruption that had protected Castellanos' organization from law enforcement attention for many years, including relationships with Dallas Police Department officers, city officials, and federal agents who had provided advance warning about investigation and helped the organization avoid prosecution for their criminal activities. Detective Valdez discovered that certain officers within his own department had access to investigative information that had been leaked to criminal organizations, allowing them to anticipate law enforcement operations and adjust their activities accordingly to avoid detection and arrest. The corruption network included Captain Robert Bob Sullivan, who supervised the department's organized crime unit and had used his position to misdirect investigations away from Castellanos' interests while providing intelligence about law enforcement activities to criminal associates. Sullivan's corruption had been facilitated through a combination of cash payments and career advancement opportunities provided by political figures with Castellanos' organization, creating a network of compromised officials that extended throughout Dallas's law enforcement and political establishment. Agent Morrison's investigation revealed that similar corruption existed within federal agencies, where certain agents and prosecutors had been compromised through bribery or blackmail and were actively working to protect the organization's interests while maintaining the appearance of legitimate law enforcement activity. The scope of corruption made the investigation extremely challenging, as the task force had to assume that their activities were being monitored by hostile forces within their own agents who would provide advance warning to the criminals they were investigating. The psychological impact of the Martínez family's disappearance extended far beyond law enforcement circles to affect the broader Dallas community, particularly in the Preston Hollow neighborhood, where residents had previously felt secure in their affluent suburban environment. The revelation that an entire family could vanish without a trace from one of the city's most desirable neighborhoods created widespread anxiety among parents and community leaders who had assumed that their wealth and social status provided protection from the violent crimes that plagued less privileged areas of the city. Community meetings organized by concerned neighbors revealed the extent of fear and uncertainty that had developed in response to the disappearance, with many families installing security systems and hiring private guards, while others considered relocating to what they perceived as safer areas. The local media coverage of this intensified public while creating additional pressure on law enforcement agents to solve the case quickly and restore confidence in community safety, though the lack of leads and suspects made it difficult for investigators to provide the reassurance that residents desperately sought. Dr. Sarah Williams, Elena's supervisor at Presbyterian Hospital, organized fundraising efforts to support the investigation and maintain public attention on the case, recognizing that media interest would be crucial for generating tips and information that might lead to the family's recovery. The community's response to the Martínez disappearance created a template for future missing persons cases, demonstrating how affluent communities could mobilize resources and maintain pressure on law enforcement agents when cases involved victims who reflected their own demographic characteristics and social status. Roberto Martínez, Elena's brother, who had taken the final photographs of the family celebration, found himself thrust into the center of the investigation as detectives recognized that his images might contain crucial evidence about the family's final hours and the circumstance that led to their disappearance. His cooperation with investigators was immediate and complete, as he provided not only the photographs from Isabella's birthday party, but also detailed information about family conversations and observations from that evening that might be relevant to understanding what had happened after the celebration ended. Roberto's photographs became central pieces of evidence that were analyzed extensively by forensic specialists who examined every detail visible in the images, searching for clues that might have been inadvertently captured by the camera during what everyone had assumed was simply a family. The analysis revealed background details that had initially seemed insignificant but took on new importance when viewed as potential evidence, including personal belongings, furniture arrangements, and architectural features that could provide information about the family's lifestyle vulnerabilities to criminal targets. Roberto's guilt over his inability to protect his sister's family created a powerful motivation for his continued cooperation with the investigation, as he dedicated himself to providing whatever assistance might help locate Elena, Carlos, Isabella, and Miguel, his own trauma. His decision to preserve and share the birthday photographs would ultimately prove to be one of the most important contributions to solving the case, though the significance of what he had captured would not be discovered until technological advances made it possible to analyze photographic evidence with previously unimaginable precision and detail. The second year of investigation brought a series of promising leads that ultimately proved to be elaborate false trails designed to waste investigative resources while protecting the actual perpetrators from law enforcement attention. Detective Valdez received an anonymous tip claiming that the Martínez family had been seen at a truck stop in El Paso, prompting a major operation involving local police, federal agents, and Border Patrol officers who conducted an extensive search of the area while following up on witness reports that seemed credible but ultimately led nowhere. The tip had included specific details of the family's appearance and behavior that suggested genuine knowledge of their circumstances, but subsequent investigation revealed that the information had been carefully fabricated using details from missing persons bulletins and media reports that were publicly available to anyone seeking to create convincing but false leads. Similar tips directed investigators to locations throughout Texas and the Southwest, each requiring significant resources to investigate properly while diverting attention and manpower from more productive lines of inquiry that might have led to actual progress in the case. Agent Morrison began to suspect that the false leads were being generated by the same criminal organization responsible for the family's disappearance, as part of a coordinated disinformation campaign designed to exhaust law enforcement resources while creating the appearance of ongoing investigative activity. Pattern of false information suggested sophisticated knowledge of investigative procedures and the psychological factors that would compel law enforcement agents to pursue any lead that might result in the family's recovery, regardless of how much time and resource such pursuits require. The third year brought what appeared to be a major breakthrough when construction workers renovating an abandoned warehouse in South Dallas discovered human remains that initial examination suggested might belong to members of the Martínez family. The discovery prompted a massive crime scene investigation involving forensic anthropologists, DNA specialists, and cadaver dogs who spent weeks carefully excavating and analyzing the site, while media attention focused intense scrutiny on every development in the case. Detective Valdez and Agent Morrison coordinated with the medical examiner's office to conduct comprehensive analysis of the remains, including dental record comparison, DNA testing, and forensic reconstruction techniques that were state-of-the-art in 1998, but would later be considered primitive compared to technologies that would become available in subsequent decades. The investigation revealed that the remains belonged to a family of undocumented immigrants who had been murdered approximately 2 years earlier, likely by human traffickers who had used the warehouse as a temporary holding facility before disposing of victims who had become liabilities rather than sources of revenue. The disappointment felt by investigators and the Martínez extended family was devastating, as hopes that had been carefully maintained for 3 years were once again crushed by the discovery that they were no closer to finding Elena, Carlos, Isabella, and Miguel than they had been immediately after the disappearance. The incident highlighted the extent to which the Martínez case had become intertwined with broader patterns of criminal activity in Dallas, where organized crime groups operated sophisticated networks that victimized numerous families while maintaining the operational security necessary to avoid by law enforcement. Agent Morrison's investigation into the Castellanos organization continued to encounter sophisticated counter-surveillance and evidence destruction that frustrated every attempt to build a prosecutable case against the group's leadership and key operational personnel. The organization employed former military and intelligence personnel who understood law enforcement techniques and had developed countermeasures that neutralized traditional investigative methods, including electronic surveillance, undercover operations, and attempts to recruit informants from within the criminal network. Morrison discovered that the organization monitored law enforcement communications and activities through corrupted officials who provided advance warning about investigation, allowing criminals to adjust their behavior and eliminate evidence before searches could be conducted, arrests could be made. The FBI agents' attempts to penetrate the organization through undercover office cooperating witnesses were repeatedly compromised, with several potential informants disappearing or withdrawing their cooperation after receiving threats that extended to their family members and loved ones. Morrison realized that conventional investigative techniques would never be sufficient to overcome the organization's security measures and the protection provided by corrupted law enforcement officials who actively worked to sabotage federal investigations. The agent began developing alternative strategies that would circumvent traditional channels and rely on innovative techniques that the organization's security specialists might not anticipate or be prepared to counter effectively. Detective Valdez's investigation revealed additional evidence of the corruption that had protected the Cas organization, including financial records showing regular payments to Captain Sullivan and other Dallas Police Department officers who had used their position to interfere with and provide intelligence to criminals. The detective's surveillance of Sullivan revealed meetings with known Castellanos associates where information was exchanged and payments were made. But Valdez was unable to act on this evidence due to the political protection that Sullivan enjoyed from senior police officials and city leaders, who were also suspected of having relationships with the criminal organization. Valdez's attempts to build internal affairs cases against corrupted officers were frustrated by administrative procedures that seemed designed to protect rather than investigate misconduct, with complaints being dismissed on technical grounds or investigations being conducted by personnel who were themselves suspected of corruption. The detective realized that the corruption within his own department was so extensive that any attempt to pursue cases against high-ranking officers would likely result in retaliation that could end his career and eliminate his ability to continue investigating the Martínez disappearance. Valdez began conducting his own parallel investigation using personal resources and unofficial methods, documenting evidence of corruption while maintaining the appearance of following official protocols and chain of command requirements that he knew were compromised but could not openly challenge without destroying his effectiveness as an investigator. The investigation's fourth year brought renewed media when a documentary filmmaker comprehensive examination of the Martínez that highlighted the apparent lack of progress while raising questions about potential law enforcement corruption. The documentary included interviews with family members, law enforcement officials, and community leaders who provided different perspectives on the case while maintaining pressure on authorities to continue pursuing all available leads and investigative options. Roberto Martínez participated in the documentary as a way of keeping his sister's family in the public consciousness, sharing his photographs and memories of the birthday celebration while appealing for anyone with information to come forward and assist the investigation. The media attention generated hundreds of new tips and leads required follow-up investigation, though most proved to be from well-meaning individuals who had confused the Martínez case with other missing persons cases, or who were providing information that had already been examined extensively by investigators. The documentary's examination of potential corruption within Dallas law enforcement agents created political pressure for reform and oversight, but also alerted the corrupted officials to the extent of outside scrutiny they were receiving and prompted them to take additional measures. Agent Morrison recognized that the increased public attention could be beneficial for generating new information, but also understood that it would make his investigation more difficult by alerting the Castellanos organization specific techniques and approaches that federal authorities were using for activities. The psychological toll of the extended investigation began to affect both Detective Valdez and Agent Morrison, as years of following false leads and encountering systematic obstruction created frustration and burnout that threatened their effectiveness as investigators. Valdez's marriage suffered as his obsession with the Martínez case consumed increasing amounts of his time and emotional energy, while his colleagues within the Dallas Police Department became strained due to his persistent questions about departmental corruption and his criticism of investigative procedures that seemed designed to protect rather than prosecute criminal organizations. Agent Morrison faced similar pressures within the FBI, where supervisors questioned the resources being devoted to a case that seemed to generate more questions than answers, while failing to produce the arrests and convictions that would justify the extensive federal involvement in what some viewed as primarily a local matter. Both investigators understood that their careers were being damaged by their continued focus on cases that their superiors considered unsolvable, but neither was willing to abandon the Martínez family or accept that powerful criminal organizations could operate with impunity simply because they had corrupted the institutions that were supposed to protect society from their predatory activities. Their persistence would ultimately prove crucial for maintaining pressure on the criminal organization and preserving evidence that would become significant when new technologies and changed circumstances eventually created opportunities for breakthrough developments that seemed impossible during the early years of investigation. Detective Valdez's investigation expanded to encompass a broader examining persons cases out Texas and the Southwest, revealing patterns that suggested the Martínez family's disappearance was part of a much larger criminal enterprise that had been operating undetected for decades. His analysis of case files from multiple jurisdictions revealed similarities in victim profiles, circumstances of disappearance, and investigative obstacles that seemed too consistent to be coincidental, suggesting that an organized network was responsible for numerous disappearances that had previously been treated as isolated incidents. The detective discovered that families and individuals who had disappeared under circumstances similar to the Martínez case often had connections to construction, real estate, or other businesses that brought them into contact with properties and projects that might have exposed them to evidence of criminal activities. Valdez's research revealed that several missing persons had been scheduled to meet with law enforcement agents or had expressed concerns about illegal activities they had witnessed in their professional capacity, creating a pattern that suggested systematic elimination of potential witnesses and informants. The scope of the criminal network appeared to extend far beyond Dallas to include operations throughout Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and other southwestern states, where similar disappearances had occurred under circumstances that local law enforcement agencies had been unable to explain or solve. Valdez began coordinating with investigators from other jurisdictions who had been working similar cases, sharing information and resources in an unofficial network of law enforcement personnel who recognized that they were dealing with criminal organizations that operate over boundaries. Agent Morrison's parallel investigation into the financial infrastructure supporting the Castellanos organization revealed connections to international money laundering networks that processed criminal proceeds from multiple sources, including drug trafficking, human trafficking, and various forms of organized crime that generated billions of dollars annually. The FBI agent's analysis of banking financial transactions revealed sophisticated systems for moving money through legitimate business channels while disguising its criminal origin, using techniques that required significant between criminal organizations operating in different countries and regions. Morrison discovered that the Castellanos organization served as a regional hub for criminal networks that extended from Mexico through the southwestern United States to major metropolitan areas, including Chicago, New York, and Miami, where similar criminal enterprises operated under the protection of corrupted law enforcement officials and political figures. The international scope of the organization's activities explained how they had been able to maintain operational security and avoid prosecution, despite years of investigation by multiple law enforcement agencies, as they could move personnel, resources, and operations across jurisdictional boundaries when any single location became subject to intensive law enforcement attention. Morrison's investigation revealed that the organization had been expanding its operations steadily for the past decade, acquiring legitimate businesses and recruiting personnel, skills, and expertise that enhanced their ability to evade law enforcement detection while increasing the sophistication and profitability of their criminal enterprise. The investigation revealed that the Castellanos organization operated a detention facility throughout the Dallas metropolitan area, where victims were held temporarily before being transported to other locations or eliminated when they were deemed too dangerous to be allowed to remain alive. Morrison's surveillance operations identified several properties that showed patterns of activity consistent with temporary detention facilities, including residential homes and commercial buildings, where individuals were brought during nighttime hours and either removed after brief periods or never seen leaving the premises. The agents' attempts to conduct closer surveillance of these facilities were frustrated by sophisticated security systems that detected law enforcement presence from significant distances, while alerting criminal operatives to modify their activities or relocate operations to alternate sites. Morrison realized that the organization's network of safe houses represented a crucial component of their operational infrastructure, allowing them to process victims and dispose of evidence while maintaining the flexibility necessary to respond to law enforcement pressure by quickly relocating their activities to areas that had not been compromised by investigative attention. The Safe House network also provided the organization with leverage over potential witnesses and informants, as family members and associates could be held at these locations as to ensure the continued cooperation and silence of individuals who might otherwise be inclined to assist law enforcement. Detective Valdez's investigation into the corruption that protected the Castellanos organization revealed a network of compromised officials that extended throughout Texas state government, including judges, prosecutors, law enforcement administrators, and political figures who had been recruited through a combination of bribery, blackmail, and career advancement incentives. The detective discovered that the organization had been systematically identifying and compromising public officials for over 2 decades, building a protective network that allowed them to operate their criminal enterprises while receiving advance warning about law enforcement investigations and prosecutorial initiatives that might threaten their operations. Valdez's research revealed that the corruption network included federal officials within agencies, including the FBI, DEA, and U.S. attorneys' offices who had been providing intelligence about federal investigations while using their positions to sabotage prosecutorial efforts and protect criminal associates from serious legal consequences. The systematic nature of the corruption explained how the organization had been able to eliminate potential witnesses like the Martínez family without generating effective law enforcement responses, as the compromised officials ensured that investigations were misdirected, evidence was destroyed, and prosecutions were dismissed or reduced to insignificant penalties. Valdez realized that his own investigation was probably being monitored by hostile forces within law enforcement agencies, making it necessary for him to develop alternative communication methods and evidence preservation techniques that would protect crucial information from being compromised or destroyed by corrupted colleagues. The organization's operational method revealed a sophisticated law enforcement and legal procedures that allowed them to exploit weaknesses in the criminal justice while avoiding the mistakes that had led to the downfall of previous criminal enterprises. Morrison's investigation revealed that the organization employed former law enforcement personnel, military veterans, and legal professionals who brought expertise and insider knowledge that enhanced their ability to evade detection and prosecution while conducting complex criminal operations. The criminal network had developed standard operating procedures for eliminating witnesses, disposing of evidence, and managing law enforcement attention that reflected professional-level planning and execution rather than the improvised violence typically associated with street-level criminal activity. Morrison discovered that the organization maintained detailed files on law enforcement, personnel, judges, prosecutors, and political figures throughout their area of operations, documenting personal relationships, financial circumstances, and potential vulnerabilities that could be exploited for recruitment or neutralization purposes. The systematic approach to intelligence gathering and operational planning demonstrated that the criminal organization operated with corporate-like efficiency and long-term strategic thinking that made them much more dangerous and difficult to combat than traditional organized crime groups that relied primarily on violence and intimidation to protect their interests. The investigation revealed that the Martínez family's elimination had been planned and executed as part of a broader operation to neutralize potential witnesses who posed threats to the organization's continued operation, with several other families and individuals having been targeted during the same time period for elimination or intimidation. Detective Valdez discovered that Carlos Martínez had not been the only construction professional who had observed evidence of criminal activities while working on renovation projects for Castellanos Associates, but he had been the only one brave enough to contact law enforcement agencies with his concerns about what he had witnessed. The other potential witnesses had been systematically intimidated through threats, harassment, and violence that convinced them to remain silent about criminal activities they had observed, while those who could not be deterred through intimidation had been eliminated along with their family members to prevent any possibility of future cooperation with law enforcement. The scope of the witness elimination program revealed the extent to which the criminal organization was willing to use violence to protect their operation, demonstrating that they viewed murder as a routine business practice rather than a last resort when other methods of ensuring silence proved insufficient. Agent Morrison realized that the Martínez case represented just one example of the organization's systematic approach to eliminating threats, and that solving this specific case would require dismantling the broader criminal network that had been responsible for numerous similar crimes throughout their area of operations over many years. The investigation's trajectory changed dramatically in 2018 when advances in digital image enhancement technology allowed forensic specialists to analyze Roberto Martínez's 1995 birthday photographs with unprecedented precision and detail, revealing background elements that had been invisible to investigators using earlier analytical methods. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a forensic image analyst with the FBI's Digital Evidence Laboratory in Quantico, used advanced algorithms and artificial intelligence systems to examine the photographs pixel by pixel, enhancing resolution and contrast to reveal details that had been present in the original images but were too subtle to be detected by human observers or earlier enhancement technology. The breakthrough came when Dr. Asopio Walsh's analysis of the living room photograph revealed a reflection in the glass surface of a picture frame hanging on the wall behind the Martínez family, a reflection that showed the image of a man standing in the doorway between the living room and kitchen, someone who had been present during the birthday celebration but had not been identified in any of the original witness interviews. The enhanced image revealed enough detail to suggest that the unknown individual was photographing or filming the Martínez family's celebration, behavior that seemed inconsistent with a normal family gathering and raised questions about his identity and motivations for documenting the event. Dr. Walsh's continued analysis revealed additional background detail that had been overlooked during the original investigation, including partial license plate numbers visible through the living room window, architectural features that could be used to identify other locations where the photographer might have worked, and personal items that suggested the unknown individual had been present in the house for an extended period rather than making a brief social visit. The enhanced photograph analysis revealed that the unknown individual's reflection showed him holding what appeared to be professional photography video equipment rather than a typical family camera, suggesting that his documentation of the birthday celebration had been more systematic and comprehensive than would be expected from a casual family friend or relative. Dr. Walsh's examination of the equipment visible in the reflection indicated that the individual had been using technology consistent with surveillance rather than social documentation, including telephoto lenses and recording devices that would have been unusual for someone attending a child's birthday party. The forensic analysis revealed partial facial features of the unknown photographer that were sufficient to create a composite sketch using advanced facial reconstruction software, providing investigators with their first potential image of someone who had been present during the Martínez family's final hours. The composite sketch was compared against databases of known criminals, law enforcement personnel, and private investigators who might have been conducting surveillance of the Martínez family on behalf of the Castellanos organization or other hostile parties. Dr. Walsh's analysis also revealed that the unknown photographer had been positioned to document not only the family celebration, but also the layout of the house, security measures, and daily routines that would have been valuable intelligence for planning a subsequent abduction. The technological breakthrough provided investigators with their first concrete evidence that the Martínez family had been under surveillance before their disappearance, confirming theories about premeditation and organizational involvement that had been developed during the early years of investigation but could not be proven using available evidence and analytical methods. Detective Valdez, now a lieutenant supervising the Dallas Police Department's cold case unit, recognized that the enhanced photograph analysis provided the most significant breakthrough in the Martínez case since the family's original disappearance 23 years earlier. His collaboration with Dr. Walsh and the FBI's Digital Evidence Laboratory created opportunities to re-examine all physical evidence from the case using advanced technologies that had not been available during the original investigation, including DNA analysis techniques that could develop profiles from smaller samples and with greater precision than had been possible in 1990. The enhanced DNA analysis revealed genetic material from the unknown photographer on several items throughout the Martínez house, including doorknobs, light switches, and furniture surfaces that indicated he had been moving freely throughout the residence rather than remaining in the public areas where guests would typically be confined during social gatherings. Lieutenant Valdez coordinated with Agent Morrison, who had been promoted to supervisory special agent and now led the FBI's Organized Crime Task Force for the Southwest region, to develop a comprehensive strategy for identifying the unknown photographer and determining his connection to the DNA profile developed from the enhanced analysis was compared against expanded federal database that included genetic information from military personnel, law enforcement officers, private security contractors, and individuals who had been arrested for various. The database searches revealed a potential match with DNA samples collected from crime scenes in Arizona and New Mexico that were connected to cases involving witness intimidation and elimination, suggesting that the unknown photographer was a professional criminal who specialized in surveillance and assassination operations for organized crime groups. Morrison's investigation revealed that similar photographic surveillance had been documented at the homes of other individuals who had subsequently disappeared or been murdered after expressing willingness to cooperate with law enforcement investigations into organized crime activities. The breakthrough in photographic analysis coincided with advances in financial investigation techniques that allowed federal agents to trace money laundering operations with unprecedented precision, revealing the full scope of the Castellanos organization's criminal enterprises and their connections to similar networks throughout North America. Agent Morrison's team used artificial intelligence systems to analyze millions of financial transactions over the past 25 years, identifying patterns that revealed how criminal proceeds were moved through legitimate business channels while maintaining the appearance of lawful commercial activity. The enhanced financial analysis revealed that the Castellanos organization had been operating as a franchise system, providing operational support, protection services to criminal enterprises throughout the region while taking percentages from drug traffic, human trafficking, extortion, and other illegal activity. Morrison discovered that the organization's revenue had grown from hundreds of thousands of dollars annually in the 1990s to over $50 million per year by 2018, making them one of the most successful criminal enterprises in the southwestern United States while maintaining operational security that had allowed them to avoid serious prosecution despite decades of law enforcement attention. The financial investigation revealed specific bank accounts, real estate investments, and business acquisitions that could be traced directly to criminal proceeds, providing the foundation for comprehensive asset forfeiture actions that would dismantle the organization's economic infrastructure, even if criminal prosecutions proved difficult to achieve. The enhanced financial analysis also revealed payments to dozens of law enforcement officers, prosecutors, judges, and political figures who had been providing protection and intelligence to the criminal organization, creating opportunities for corruption prosecutions that would eliminate the network compromised officials who had been protecting the organization's attention. Walsh's continued analysis of the Martínez family photographs revealed additional evidence that had been invisible to earlier investigation techniques, including traces of surveillance equipment that had been installed throughout the house to monitor the family's activities and communication in the weeks leading up to their disappearance. The enhanced image analysis revealed small modified electrical outlet, light fixtures, and telephone that were consistent with covert surveillance designed to intercept conversations and document daily routines. Value planning. The forensic analysis indicated that the surveillance equipment had been professionally installed by individuals with technical expertise and access to law enforcement-grade monitoring devices, suggesting that the Martínez family had been under comprehensive electronic surveillance for an extended period before their elimination. Dr. Walsh's examination of the photographs revealed that the unknown photographer had been documenting not only the birthday celebration, but also the locations of windows, doors, security system, and other architectural features that would be relevant for planning unauthorized entry into the residence. The systematic nature of the surveillance indicated that the Martínez family's elimination had been planned with meticulous attention to detail over a period of weeks or months, rather than being a spontaneous response to Carlos's decision to cooperate with federal authorities. The enhanced photographic analysis provided investigators with evidence the criminal organization had been monitoring potential witnesses and informants as a routine security measure, identifying and neutralizing threats to their operation before law enforcement agencies could benefit from witness cooperation. Lieutenant Valdez's re-examination of the original crime scene using advanced forensic techniques revealed evidence that had been missed or misinterpreted during the 1995 investigation, including trace materials that indicated the Martínez family had been transported from their home using vehicles and methods that were consistent with professional kidnapping. The enhanced forensic analysis revealed that the family had been sedated using pharmaceutical compounds that were not readily available to ordinary criminals, but could be obtained by individuals with connections to medical or veterinary suggestive abduction equipment. Valdez's team discovered evidence that the Martínez family had been kept alive for several hours after their abduction, during which time they had been transported to at least 2 different locations before being moved to their final destination, a pattern that suggested the organization had protocols for processing victims while maintaining operational security. The forensic analysis revealed that at least one family member had been injured more seriously than originally believed, with blood evidence indicating trauma that would have required medical attention to prevent death from blood loss or infection. The enhanced crime scene analysis provided investigators with specific information about the vehicles, personnel, and methods used in the Martínez family's abduction, creating opportunities to identify the individuals responsible and potentially locate the sites where the family had been held during their final hours. The technological advances that enabled the breakthrough in the Martínez case also provided investigators with new tools for analyzing other missing persons cases that had been connected to the Castellanos organization, revealing patterns of criminal activity that had been impossible to detect using earlier investigative methods. Agent Morrison's team applied similar analytical techniques to dozens of other cases involving families and individuals who had disappeared under circumstances similar to the Martínez case, revealing that the organization had been systematically eliminating potential witnesses and informants for over 3 decades while maintaining operational security that had prevented law enforcement agencies from recognizing the scope of their activity. The enhanced analysis revealed that the organization had been responsible for the disappearances of at least 47 families and individuals throughout the southwestern United States, making them one of the most prolific criminal enterprises in American history while operating with virtual impunity due to the protection provided by corrupted law enforcement. Morrison realized that solving the Martínez would require dismantling the entire criminal network that had been responsible for decades of murders and disappearance, a task that would require unprecedented coordination between federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies while overcoming resistance from corrupted officials who had been protecting the organization's interests. The scope of the investigation expanded to encompass multiple federal agencies, including the FBI, DEA, ATF, and U.S. Marshals, while international cooperation with Mexican law enforcement agents became necessary to address the organization's cross-border operation and money laundering activities. The investigation's most significant breakthrough came when Miguel Santos, a mid-level associate in the Castellanos organization's money laundering operations, was arrested during a routine traffic stop in Houston that revealed outstanding federal warrants related to an unconnected drug trafficking investigation. Santos had been operating under an assumed identity for over 15 years, using forged documents and a carefully constructed background to avoid detection by law enforcement agencies, while working his way up through the ranks of the criminal organization that had murdered his namesake family in 1995. His arrest created immediate complications when fingerprint analysis revealed his true identity as Miguel Rodriguez, a former Dallas construction worker who had disappeared from his apartment 3 days after the Martínez family vanished, apparently having been eliminated by the organization to prevent his potential testimony about criminal activities he had observed while working on Castellanos properties. Agent Morrison recognized Santos's name from the original investigation and immediately arranged for his transfer to federal custody in Dallas, where he could be interrogated about his knowledge of the Martínez case and his subsequent infiltration of the criminal organization responsible for their disappearance. Santos's initial response to federal questioning was complete denial of any knowledge about the Martínez family or his own previous identity, maintaining that he was Miguel Santos from Houston and that the fingerprint identification must have been the result of database errors or deliberate manipulation by federal agents seeking to frame him for crimes he had never committed. The breakthrough in Santos's interrogation came when Agent Morrison presented him with the enhanced photographs from Isabella Martínez's birthday party, including the composite sketch of the unknown photographer that had been developed using advanced facial reconstruction technology. Santos immediately recognized the individual in the composite sketch as Tommy Brennan, a professional assassin and surveillance specialist who had been employed by the Castellanos organization for various elimination operations throughout the 1990s and early 2000s. His recognition of Brennan provided investigators with their first concrete link between the Martínez family's disappearance and specific individuals within the criminal organization, though Santos initially claimed that his knowledge came from general reputation rather than direct involvement in criminal activities. Agent Morrison's continued questioning revealed that Santos possessed detailed knowledge about the organization's operational methods, personnel, and criminal activities that could only have been acquired through direct participation over many years, making his denials of involvement increasingly implausible as the interrogation continued. The federal agent employed psychological pressure techniques designed to exploit Santos's apparent guilt over his failure to prevent the Martínez family's elimination, suggesting that his cooperation with federal authorities could provide some measure of redemption for his inability to protect innocent victims from the criminal organization he had subsequently joined. Santos's resistance began to crumble when Morrison revealed federal prosecutors were prepared to seek the death penalty for his involvement in multiple murders and criminal conspiracy, while cooperation with the investigation could result in life imprisonment rather than Santos's decision to cooperate came suddenly during his fourth day in federal custody, when he requested a private meeting with Agent Morrison and federal prosecutor David Chen to negotiate a cooperation agreement that would provide protection for his family members who were living in Mexico under assumed identities. His initial confession revealed that he had been present at the Martínez house on the night of June 15, 1995, as part of a surveillance team that had been monitoring the family's activities in preparation for their elimination, and that he had witnessed the abduction but had been powerless to intervene without exposing his own infiltration of the criminal organization. Santos explained that he had been recruited by the Castellanos organization several months before the Martínez disappearance, after financial problems had made him vulnerable to criminal recruitment, but that he had initially believed his involvement would be limited to money laundering activity rather than violence against innocent families. His confession revealed that Thomas Brennan had been the primary surveillance operative responsible for documenting the Martínez family's routines and security measures, while Santos had been assigned to provide intelligence about Carlos Martínez's construction business and his potential knowledge of criminal activities conducted at Castellanos properties. The cooperation agreement required Santos to provide comprehensive testimony about all criminal activities he had witnessed or participated in during his 15 years within the organization, including detailed information about murders, disappearances, corruption, and money laundering operations that could support federal prosecutions against dozens of criminal associates and corrupted officials. Santos's detailed confession revealed the specific circumstances of the Martínez family's abduction and murder, providing investigators with the first comprehensive account of what had happened during the family's final hours and the methods used to eliminate and dispose of their remains. He testified that the abduction operation had been planned for several weeks, with surveillance teams documenting the family's daily routines while technical specialists installed electronic monitoring equipment throughout their house to intercept communication. The operation had been triggered by intercepted communications between Carlos Martínez and his attorney discussing his planned cooperation with federal authorities, information that had been obtained through corrupted law enforcement officials who were monitoring FBI activities and providing intelligence to the criminal organization. Santos described how the abduction team had entered the Martínez house at approximately 11:30 p.m. on June 15th, using keys that had been obtained during earlier surveillance operations, and had systematically subdued each family member using pharmaceutical restraints before transporting them to a warehouse facility in industrial South Dallas. His testimony revealed that the family had been kept alive for approximately 18 hours while the organization's leadership decided how to dispose of them, during which time they had been tortured and interrogated to determine whether Carlos had shared information about criminal activities with anyone other than federal authorities. The confession provided disturbing details about the systematic torture and murder of each family member, revealing the cruel methods used by the organization to ensure that potential witnesses understood the consequences of cooperation with law enforcement while serving as examples to deter future informants from coming forward. Santos testified that Carlos Martínez had been tortured extensively to force him to reveal the full extent of his knowledge about criminal activities and his communications with federal authorities, while Elena, Isabella, and Miguel had been tormented to increase his psychological suffering and break his resistance to interrogation. The organization's operatives had used professional torture techniques designed to inflict maximum pain and psychological trauma while avoiding methods that might result in premature death before all useful information could be extracted from the victims. Santos described how the family members had been murdered individually, with each execution being used to increase the terror experienced by the surviving family members, while demonstrating the organization's willingness to kill children and innocent family members to protect their criminal interests. His testimony revealed that the murders had been recorded on video equipment for future use as intimidation tools against other potential witnesses who might consider cooperating with law enforcement investigations. The confession provided specific information about the locations where the murders had taken place, the individuals responsible for conducting the torture and executions, and the methods used to dispose of the family's remains in ways that would prevent their discovery by law enforcement agents. Santos's cooperation revealed the sophisticated cover-up that had been implemented immediately after the Martínez family's murder, designed to eliminate physical evidence while creating false leads that would misdirect law enforcement attention away from the actual perpetrators and crime scene. The cover-up had involved multiple teams of specialists who cleaned crime scenes using professional techniques that eliminated DNA evidence, fingerprints, and other forensic materials that might have been used to identify the perpetrators or reconstruct the sequence of events. Santos testified that the organization had employed former law enforcement personnel who understood forensic investigation techniques and could anticipate the types of evidence that investigators would seek, allowing them to eliminate or contaminate crucial materials before crime scenes were processed. The false leads that had frustrated the investigation for decades had been created using sophisticated psychological manipulation techniques designed to exploit the emotional desperation of family members and investigators while consuming law enforcement resources that might otherwise have been directed toward more productive investigative activities. Santos revealed that the organization had maintained detailed intelligence files on all investigators working the Martínez case, including Detective Valdez and Agent Morrison, monitoring their activities and adjusting counter-investigative measures accordingly ahead of law enforcement efforts protecting the criminal operative responsible for the family's elimination. Santos's comprehensive testimony provided federal investigators with detailed intelligence about the Castellanos organization's structure, operations, and personnel that enabled them to develop prosecutorial strategies targeting every level of the criminal enterprise from street-level operatives to senior leadership figures. His cooperation revealed that Vincent Castellanos maintained direct control over elimination operations while insulating himself from routine criminal activities through a complex hierarchy of subordinates who handled day-to-day operations including drug trafficking, money laundering, and witness intimidation. Agent Morrison's team used Santos's information to create detailed organizational charts that map the relationships between criminal associates, legitimate business fronts, and corrupted officials who provided protection and intelligence to the organization while maintaining plausible deniability about their involvement in specific crime. The intelligence provided by Santos enabled federal agents to obtain search warrant wiretap authorization that penetrated the organization's communication for the first time in decades, revealing real-time intelligence about ongoing criminal activities while documenting evidence support. Morrison realized that Santos's cooperation represented the breakthrough that investigators had been seeking for 25 years, providing the insider knowledge necessary to overcome the organization's sophisticated counter-surveillance measures and operational security protocol that had previously made them effectively immune to law enforcement penetration. The federal investigation expanded rapidly as Santos's testimony revealed connections between the Castellanos organization and criminal networks throughout North America, including Mexican drug cartels, Canadian money laundering operations, and organized crime families in major American cities who collaborated on various illegal enterprises. His detailed knowledge of the organization's financial operations enabled federal agents to trace money flows through dozens of legitimate businesses and financial institutions, revealing the full scope of their money laundering activities while identifying assets that could be seized through federal forfeiture proceedings. Santos's testimony revealed that the organization had been operating as a criminal services provider, offering specialized capabilities including witness elimination, evidence disposal, and law enforcement corruption to other criminal enterprises while maintaining their own independent operations in drugs, human trafficking, and Agent Morrison's investigation revealed that the organization's elimination services had been responsible for murders and disappearances throughout the southwestern United States, with Santos providing specific information about dozens of cases that had been previously unsolved by local law enforcement agencies. The scope of the criminal conspiracy exceeded anything that federal investigators had previously encountered, requiring unprecedented coordination between multiple agencies and jurisdictions to address the organization's extensive operations while ensuring that corrupted officials could not provide advance warning about pending law enforcement action. Santos's testimony revealed the specific methods used to dispose of the Martínez family's remains, providing investigators with precise locations where the bodies had been buried, along with information about other victims who had been eliminated and disposed of using similar methods. His confession revealed that the organization maintained several disposal sites throughout Texas and surrounding states, including remote ranch properties and industrial facilities where victims' bodies were buried or destroyed, using methods that would prevent identification and eliminate evidence that might be used in future prosecution. Agent Morrison coordinated with multiple law enforcement agencies to conduct simultaneous excavation at the disposal sites identified by Santos, using ground-penetrating radar and cadaver dogs to locate buried remains while documenting evidence that could be used to support murder charges against The excavation operations recovered the remains of the Martínez family, along with dozens of other victims who had been murdered by the organization over the past 3 decades, providing forensic evidence that corroborated Santos' testimony while enabling investigators to close numerous missing persons cases that had remained unsolved for years. The discovery of the Martínez family's remains provided closure for Roberto Martínez and other surviving family members who had spent 25 years wondering about their fate, though the forensic evidence also revealed the extent of torture and abuse that the family had endured. The investigation revealed that Thomas Brennan, the surveillance specialist who had been present during Isabella Martínez's birthday party, had been responsible for numerous other elimination operations throughout his career with the Castellanos organization, making him one of the most prolific professionals in American criminal history. Santos's testimony enabled federal agents to trace Brennan's activities over 2 decades, revealing his involvement in at least 37 murders and disappearances that had been conducted on behalf of various criminal organizations, while he maintained his primary association. Agent Morrison's investigation revealed that Brennan had been trained in surveillance and assassination tech by former military and intelligence personnel who had been recruited by the organization to provide specialized capabilities that enhanced their operational effectiveness while reducing the risk of detection by law enforcement agencies. The federal investigation revealed that Brennan had maintained detailed records of his assassination, including photographs and video recordings that he kept as personal trophies, while also providing evidence that could be used by the organization for blackmail and intimidation purposes. Morrison's team obtained search warrants for Brennan's multiple residences and storage facilities, recovering extensive evidence that documented his criminal activities while providing additional intelligence about the organization's operations and targets. Santos's cooperation revealed the extensive corruption network that had protected the Castellanos organization from law enforcement attention for over 3 decades, providing specific information about payments made to dozens of police officers, federal agents, prosecutors, judges, and political figures who had used their positions to obstruct investigations and protect criminal associates. His testimony enabled federal investigators to trace financial payments through complex systems of shell companies and intermediary accounts that had been used to maintain plausible deniability while ensuring that corrupted officials received regular compensation for their protection service. Agent Morrison's investigation revealed that the corruption network had been systematically developed over many years, with the organization identifying vulnerable officials and gradually compromising them through combinations of bribery, blackmail, and career advancement opportunities that created long-term relationships beneficial to criminal interests. Santos provided detailed information about specific instances where corrupted officials had provided advance warning about law enforcement operations, altered evidence, dismissed charges, or otherwise used their positions to protect the organization from prosecution while maintaining the appearance of legitimate law enforcement activity. The federal investigation revealed that corruption had been so extensive that normal law enforcement channels could not be trusted, requiring prosecutors to use special grand jury procedures and compartmentalized investigative techniques that prevented compromised officials from obtaining advance warning about pending charges and arrests. The psychological impact of Santos's testimony extended beyond its immediate law enforcement implications to provide insights into the methods used by criminal organizations to recruit and maintain control over associates who might otherwise be reluctant to participate in violent criminal enterprises. His detailed account of his own recruitment and gradual involvement in increasingly serious criminal activities revealed how the organization used financial pressure, family threats, and psychological manipulation to ensure loyalty while preventing defection that might threaten their operation security. Santos described how the organization had isolated him from legitimate employment opportunities and social relationships while making him financially and emotionally dependent on criminal associates who became his primary source of income, social interaction, and personal identity. His testimony revealed that many organization members had been recruited using similar methods, creating a network of individuals who were bound together by mutual dependence and shared culpability for criminal activities that made defection extremely dangerous, both personally and professionally. Agent Morrison realized that understanding these recruitment and control methods would be crucial for developing strategies to encourage cooperation from other organization members while protecting potential witnesses from retaliation that could undermine future projects. Santos's willingness to cooperate, despite the obvious personal risks, demonstrated that even long-term criminal associates could be motivated to assist law enforcement when presented with appropriate incentives and protection measures, providing a model for encouraging additional defections that could further damage the organization's operational capabilities and leadership structure. Santos's detailed confession revealed the complete sequence of events that had led to the Martínez family's elimination, beginning with Vincent Castellanos' discovery that Carlos Martínez had been discussing his observations of criminal activities with family members, and legal counsel in conversations suggested potential cooperative authority. The criminal organization had been monitoring Martínez through electronic surveillance installed during routine construction work at his residence, allowing them to intercept private conversations that revealed the contractor's growing concerns about illegal activities he had witnessed while working on Castellanos' properties. Santos testified that Castellanos had initially hoped to neutralize the threat through intimidation rather than elimination, but Carlos Martínez's decision to contact federal authorities had escalated the situation beyond the point where nonviolent solutions would be sufficient to protect the organization's interests. The decision to eliminate the entire Martínez family had been made by Castellanos personally, based on his assessment that family members possessed knowledge that could be used by federal authorities, even if Carlos himself were neutralized, making comprehensive elimination the only option that would ensure organizational security. Santos revealed that similar elimination decisions had been made regarding other families and individuals who had posed potential threats to the organization, demonstrating that the Martínez murders were part of a systematic policy rather than an isolated incident driven by unusual circumstances. The confession provided gruesome details about the planning and preparation phases of the elimination operation, revealing the professional methods used by the organization to ensure successful execution while minimizing the risk of detection by law enforcement agencies. Santos testified that surveillance teams had been monitoring the Martínez family for over 6 weeks before the elimination, documenting their daily routines, social relationships, and security measures while identifying optimal timing and methods for conducting the abduction without witnesses or evidence that might compromise the operation. Thomas Brennan had been assigned to conduct technical surveillance, including photography and electronic monitoring, while Santos and other associates had been responsible for gathering intelligence about Carlos Martínez's construction business, family relationships, and potential knowledge of criminal activities that might be shared with federal authorities. The organization prepared multiple contingency plans for different scenarios, including resistance from family members, unexpected presence of visitors or neighbors, and potential law enforcement response that might complicate the elimination operation or disposal of remains. Santos revealed that the organization maintained detailed protocols for elimination operations that had been developed over many years of experience and refined based on lessons learned from previous operations that had encountered complications or attracted unwanted law enforcement. Santos's testimony revealed the specific events of June 15, 1995, beginning with the birthday celebration that had provided cover for final surveillance activities while ensuring that all family members would be present at the residence when the elimination team arrived later that evening. His confession described how Brennan had used the birthday party as an opportunity to conduct final reconnaissance of the house interior, documenting room layouts, security measures, and family routines that would be crucial for planning the abduction operation that was scheduled to commence after guests had departed and the family had gone to. Santos testified that he had been assigned to monitor the neighborhood for law enforcement activity while maintaining communication with the elimination team through encrypted radio systems that allowed coordination without creating electronic records that might be intercepted by federal surveillance operations. The operation had commenced at approximately 11:30 p.m. when 3 team members entered the Martínez residence through a rear door that had been unlocked during Brennan's earlier visit, allowing them to move through the house systematically, subduing each family member with pharmaceutical restraints that rendered them unconscious within minutes. Santos described how the team had worked with professional efficiency to remove all evidence of their presence while transporting the unconscious family members to vehicles that had been positioned to avoid detection by neighbors or surveillance systems that might have recorded their activities. The confession revealed the horrific details of the Martínez family's final 18 hours, during which they had been held at a warehouse facility in South Dallas while organization leadership decided their fate and attempted to extract information about Carlos's communications with federal authorities. Santos testified that the family had been kept in separate rooms to prevent communication while being systematically tortured and interrogated using methods designed to inflict maximum psychological trauma while avoiding injury that might result in premature death before all useful information could be extracted. His detailed account revealed that Carlos Martínez had been the primary target of interrogation, with organization operatives attempting to determine the full extent of his knowledge about criminal activities and his communications with federal agents, attorneys, and other potentials. Santos described how Elena Martínez had been tortured in front of her husband to increase his psychological suffering and break his resistance to interrogation, while 8-year-old Isabella and 12-year-old Miguel had been terrorized and abused to further increase their parents' desperation and willingness to cooperate with his demand. The organization's operatives had used professional torture techniques, including waterboarding, electrical shock, and chemical burns that were designed to inflict unbearable pain while leaving minimal physical evidence that might be detected during forensic examination of remains. Santos's confession provided specific details about each family member's murder, revealing the cruel deliberation with which the organization had eliminated innocent victims who posed no direct threat to their criminal operation, but whose knowledge of their father's discoveries had made them unacceptable security risks. His testimony revealed that Carlos Martínez had been forced to watch the torture and murder of his wife and children before being killed himself, a psychological torture designed to ensure maximum suffering while serving as an example to other potential informants who might consider cooperating with law enforcement authorities. Santos described how Isabella Martínez had been murdered first, with her killing being used to break her parents' resistance and force them to provide information about Carlos's communications with federal authorities, while 12-year-old Miguel had been kept alive longer to increase his family's psychological trauma before being eliminated when no additional useful information could be extracted. Elena Martínez had been subjected to sexual assault and torture that continued for several hours before her murder, with organization operatives using her suffering to increase Carlos's desperation and willingness to cooperate with interrogation demands that might have provided intelligence about federal investigation. Carlos Martínez's own torture and murder had continued throughout the night and into the following day, with organization operatives using increasingly brutal methods to ensure that he had revealed everything he knew about criminal activities and law enforcement communication. The confession revealed the systematic disposal operation that had been implemented to eliminate all evidence of the murders while creating false trails that would misdirect law enforcement attention away from the actual crime scenes and perpetrators. Santos testified that the Martínez family's bodies had been dismembered and disposed of at multiple locations throughout Texas using methods designed to prevent identification and eliminate DNA evidence that might be used to trace their murders to specific individuals or organizations. Their remains had been buried at remote ranch properties owned by Castellanos Associates, with the burial sites being selected based on geological and environmental factors that would accelerate decomposition while reducing the likelihood of accidental discovery by hunters, ranchers, or other individuals who might report their findings to law enforcement authorities. Santos revealed that the organization maintained detailed records of disposals that were kept by Castellanos personally, information that he used to ensure the loyalty of subordinates who understood that evidence of their crimes could be recovered and used against them if they attempted to betray the organization or cooperate with law enforcement. The disposal operation had included extensive cleaning of the warehouse facility where the murders had taken place, using industrial chemicals and professional techniques that eliminated DNA evidence, fingerprints, and other forensic materials that might have been used by investigators to identify the perpetrators or reconstruct the sequence of events that had led to the family's elimination. The coordinated federal arrests of Vincent Castellanos and 63 associates began at dawn on September 14, 2024, with simultaneous operations conducted by FBI agents, DEA personnel, U.S. Marshals, and local law enforcement officers throughout Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and 3 other southwestern states where the criminal organization had been operating. Agent Morrison coordinated the multi-state operation from a command center established at the FBI's Dallas field office, using real-time intelligence and surveillance to ensure that all primary targets were apprehended before they could receive warning from corrupted law enforcement officials or escape to foreign countries where extradition might prove difficult. The operation represented the largest organized crime takedown in southwestern United States history, requiring over 800 federal agents and local officers who had been carefully vetted to ensure that none were connected to the corruption network that had the criminal organization for 3 decades. Vincent Castellanos was arrested at his Highland Park residence without resistance, though subsequent searches revealed that he had been preparing to flee the country and had maintained emergency escape plans that included private aircraft, offshore bank accounts, and safe houses in Mexico and Central America, where he could have avoided prosecution indefinitely. The comprehensive nature of the arrest ensured that the organization's leadership structure was completely dismantled, preventing surviving associates from maintaining criminal operations or retaliating against witnesses who had cooperated with the federal investigation. The arrest operation yielded extensive physical evidence that corroborated Santos's testimony while providing additional documentation of the organization's criminal activities spanning 3 decades of operation throughout the southwestern United States. Federal agents executed search warrants at over 90 locations, including residences, businesses, warehouses, and storage facilities that had been identified through Santos's cooperation and subsequent investigative activities that mapped the organization's complete operational infrastructure. The searches recovered millions of dollars in cash, drugs, weapons, and other contraband, along with detailed records that documented the organization's financial operations, criminal activities, and relationships with corrupted officials who had provided protection from law enforcement attention. Agent Morrison's team discovered extensive video and photographic documentation that the organization had maintained as insurance against potential betrayal by associates, including recordings of murders, torture sessions, and meetings with corrupted officials that provided evidence for dozens of additional prosecutions beyond the core conspiracy charges. The physical evidence included personal belongings of victims from cases spanning 20, providing closure for numerous families while enabling investigators to solve missing persons cases that had remained open throughout multiple jurisdictions in the southwestern United States. Thomas Brennan was arrested at a remote ranch property in West Texas, where he had been conducting surveillance training for junior organization members, an operation that revealed the systematic methods used by the criminal network to develop specialized capabilities among associates while maintaining operational security that had frustrated law enforcement efforts for decades. Federal agents discovered that Brennan had been maintaining detailed records of his assassination operations, including photographs, video recordings, and personal items taken from victims as trophies, evidence that documented his involvement in over 40 murders while providing intelligence that could be used to solve numerous cold cases throughout the region. His arrest location yielded sophisticated surveillance equipment, weapons, and communication devices that demonstrated the professional level of resources available to the organization while revealing training materials that had been used to develop elimination capabilities among criminal associates. Brennan's capture eliminated one of the most dangerous operatives in the organization's network, while removing a source of ongoing threat to potential witnesses and law enforcement personnel who had been involved in the long-term investigation. Agent Morrison recognized that Brennan's arrest was particularly significant because his specialized skills had made the organization much more effective at eliminating potential threats, and his removal would significantly reduce their ability to retaliate against cooperating witnesses or continue their pattern of systematic elimination of individuals who posed risk to criminal operations. The federal prosecution of the Castellanos organization resulted in comprehensive convictions that dismantled the criminal network while ensuring that surviving associates would face severe penalties that would prevent future criminal activities and deter similar organizations from attempting to establish operations in the region. Vincent Castellanos was convicted on multiple charges including racketeering, murder, conspiracy, money laundering, and corruption, receiving multiple life sentences without possibility of parole that ensured he would spend his remaining years in federal maximum security facilities designed for the most dangerous criminals. Thomas Brennan received the death penalty for his role in the Martínez family murders and numerous other elimination operations, though his sentence was later commuted to life imprisonment as part of a plea agreement that required him to provide testimony about additional murders and criminal activities that had not been fully investigated by federal authorities. Santos's cooperation agreement resulted in a sentence of 25 years in federal prison rather than the death penalty prosecutors had initially sought, though his testimony had been crucial for achieving convictions against the organization's leadership while providing closure for dozens of families whose loved ones had been murdered by the criminal network. The comprehensive nature of the prosecutions effectively eliminated the organization as a criminal enterprise while sending clear messages to other organized crime groups that systematic corruption and witness elimination would not provide protection from eventual federal prosecution when sufficient resources and determination were applied to long-term investigation. The corruption prosecutions that resulted from the investigation led to the conviction of 37 law enforcement officers, prosecutors, judges, and political figures who had been providing protection to the Castellanos organization while using their positions to obstruct justice and facilitate criminal activities. Captain Robert Sullivan received a 15-year federal sentence for his role in providing intelligence to criminal associates while using his position to misdirect investigations away from organization activities, though his cooperation in the final phases of the investigation had prevented even more severe penalties that might have included life imprisonment. The extensive corruption revealed during the investigation led to comprehensive reforms within Dallas Police Department and other law enforcement agencies throughout the region, including enhanced oversight procedures, ethical training programs, and counterintelligence measures designed to prevent future investigations by hostile criminal organizations. Agent Morrison was promoted to Assistant Special Agent in Charge and assigned to develop new protocols for investigating organized crime networks that operated across multiple jurisdictions while employing sophisticated counter-surveillance measures and corruption to protect their criminal activities. Lieutenant Valdez received national recognition for his persistent investigation that had maintained pressure on the criminal organization while preserving evidence that ultimately proved crucial for achieving successful prosecution, though his long dedication to the case had taken significant personal and professional tolls that would affect him throughout the remainder of his law enforcement career. The recovery of the Martínez family's remains provided closure to Martínez and other surviving family members who had spent nearly 3 decades wondering about their fate while maintaining hope they'd someday be found alive despite the overwhelming evidence that they had been murdered shortly. The forensic analysis of the recovered remains confirmed the details of Santos's testimony about the torture and murder that the family had endured, providing definitive proof of the crimes while enabling prosecutors to pursue the most serious charges against organization members who had participated in their elimination. Roberto Martínez attended every day of the federal trials, witnessing the conviction of the individuals responsible for his sister's family's deaths, while providing victim impact testimony that helped judges and juries understand the human cost of organized crime activities that might otherwise seem like abstract criminal conspiracy. The Martínez family's story became a symbol of the innocent victims who had been destroyed by organized crime activities, while their eventual justice demonstrated that persistent investigation and federal prosecution could overcome even the most sophisticated criminal organizations when sufficient resources and determination were applied over extended periods. The case established precedents for investigating organized crime networks that employed systematic witness elimination while maintaining extensive corruption within law enforcement and political institutions, providing models for protect American communities from similar criminal enterprise. The Martínez case's resolution brought profound changes to Roberto Martínez as he struggled to process the confirmation of his sister's family's gruesome deaths while finding meaning in their eventual justice after nearly 3 decades of uncertainty. Roberto had dedicated much of his adult life to keeping his family's memory alive through media appearances, community advocacy, and cooperation with law enforcement activities that had provided him with purpose while preventing him from fully accepting their deaths until the recovery of their remains made denial impossible. The detailed testimony about his family's torture and murder created overwhelming grief that required extensive psychological counseling and support from victim services who helped him understand that his persistent efforts had been crucial in achieving the justice that might never have been possible without his preservation of the birthday and his continued cooperation with investigators. Roberto established a foundation in his family's memory that provided support for other families dealing with the disappearance of loved ones, focusing particularly on cases involving organized crime and systemic corruption that often left victims feeling abandoned by traditional justice systems. The foundation offered legal guidance, investigative support, and psychological counseling while maintaining a public presence that pressured law enforcement agencies to prioritize cases that might otherwise be dismissed as unsolvable. Through his advocacy, Roberto became a recognized figure in national victim rights, testifying before congressional committees about the necessity of federal resources for combating organized crime networks while reminding legislators that behind every statistic lay real families whose lives had been shattered. His ability to transform personal tragedy into a force for justice became both his legacy and his way of ensuring that the suffering endured by his sister, brother-in-law, niece, and nephew would never be forgotten or repeated without resistance. The Martínez case also reshaped law enforcement approaches to organized crime investigation, establishing interagency task forces and oversight mechanisms that became permanent features of federal strategy. The success of the operation against the Castellanos organization demonstrated that even deeply entrenched networks supported by systemic corruption could be dismantled through persistence, cooperation, and the protection of key witnesses willing to expose internal operations. Training programs developed from the case were adopted by FBI academies and state police institutions throughout the country, emphasizing the importance of long-term evidence preservation, counter-corruption measures, and the cultivation of community trust in investigations that might take decades to resolve. Scholars and criminologists documented the turning point in American law enforcement history, noting that its lessons would influence future generations of investigators facing similarly resilient criminal enterprise. Yet, for all the systemic impact, the legacy of the Martínez case remained most profound on a human level, reminding communities across the nation that justice, though sometimes delayed, could ultimately prevail when memory was preserved and determination sustained. Roberto Martínez, in his later years, often reflected that while he had lost his family to unimaginable cruelty, he had gained a purpose larger than himself, ensuring that their voices, silenced in 1995, continued to echo through his work and the reforms their tragedy had inspired. The final closure brought by the convictions and the recovery of the remains allowed him to honor his family not only with grief, but also with resilience, transforming their suffering into a lasting warning to criminal organizations and a beacon of hope for victims who refused to be forgotten. The Martínez family, once erased in silence, had become immortalized in the annals of justice, not merely as victims, but as catalysts for a legacy that reshaped the pursuit of truth against the shadows of organized crime.